Welcome everyone to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. I'm a networking expert and the author of the upcoming book, No Strangers, How to Build Community, One Relationship at a Time. My why is the pursuit of mastery, and the goal of this podcast is to lock arms on a lifelong mission of daily personal growth to become the best version of ourselves. So let's dive in to today's episode. All right, welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. And this is history in the making because we have our very first special guest. So this is going to go down in the history book someday when there's hundreds or thousands of episodes. You'll always be able to say that you are the first guest speaker on this episode, which is amazing, and on this podcast. So there's no one better to have as your first special guest than world-renowned inspirational speaker. This is a advisor to the world's top banks and also a best-selling author. So welcome to the call, Mr. James MacNeil. James, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. I'm absolutely honored, Joel. I've had the pleasure of you and I connecting for a few years now, and I've loved every opportunity. You've been a blessing to me and my community, and you've allowed me to speak at your live events. So for this to be your very first guest on your show, I'm over the moon. So thank you so much, sir.
You're very welcome, and thank you for the support. Thank you for being on this this interview. And let's take it back to the beginning. So not everyone listening to this podcast is familiar with James MacNeil. A lot of people are, but some people aren't. And you know what? You weren't born with all these titles and this success and these skills.
No.
This was developed over time. And the purpose of this podcast is mastery, to learn from those that have achieved a lot of success and see if we can see some common links so that we can help everyone become the best version of themselves. So maybe if you could go back to the start. So I don't know how far back you want to go, but I know that you had challenges in your childhood and growing up, and let's go back to the start.
Sure. So thank you, Joel. I think it's very important to start with the start, really, because a lot of people think, oh, you're so lucky. You had it easy, or you had this working for you. And we're all unique with our own unique challenges. Even the person with the most perfect, most blessed experience, they're cursed with an easy start. The tough start sometimes creates some unique strengths, some unique abilities, some unique perspectives that can serve someone for a long time. So no matter what someone's start is, it's their start. And mine is very unique. I started out with a very challenging home situation. And I have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. According to some experts, I have other letters after my name, but I just don't want to give a ton of energy to that. But I could not speak a sentence until I was 9 years old. 9 years old is when I was finishing sentences. And so I was able to speak, but in a very broken, very like a baby that was hyper. So for me to struggle with that caused a lot of challenges with interpersonal challenges. So I could not make friends to save my life. I had severe self-esteem issues and communication issues. Could not learn to read, by the way. I didn't learn to read till I was 21. And so I was we had challenges at home. We were financially not doing well. We were always very volatile and so on. But beyond that, there was violence in my home. There were challenges in my home. So I came out of the chute at 18 years old. My family disbanded, and I moved very quickly into a suicidal depression where I had become an angry person, and I started to become a violent person myself. So that was the beginning. By the time I was 19, I think I was probably going to be dead or in prison within 6 months if my life didn't turn around. So that's how dramatic it got. But here we are now.
That's amazing. Now, I remember a story of you living in your car, that you got inspired and you wrote a book quickly, went on to become a best-selling author. Can you maybe share a little bit of that?
Sure. Well, you spanned about 7 years there, but I'll try and summarize. So yeah, when I was here in Canada and in the Toronto area, Richmond Hill is where I lived, and my family disbanded. I thought, okay, how am I going to survive? Because at that time, at 18, I couldn't fill in a one-page tenant application. I knew how to work and I knew how to pay rent. I'd been working and paying rent since I was 13, but to complete that application form was beyond my capacity and my confidence level. So I thought for sure I'm going to be homeless. So what I did was I got a hold of a car for $500 and I packed everything I owned in it and I drove it to Florida and made it there alive with all of my belongings. Not long after I was there, someone stole my car with all of my belongings. So found myself in South Florida in a real mess, trying to figure out how I was going to survive. And so that's where that started. When I hit my rock bottom down there, I remember praying, saying, God, if you exist, and if you don't hate me too, this is your last chance. I had met some drug runners who were dealing in cocaine and so on. And the lifespan was 3 to 6 months for a drug runner. They're back in the Scarface days. And I thought, perfect, I wanted out of this life anyway. And the day before I went to meet with the drug runners, and that would have been the beginning of the end of my life, I met a girl who invited me to her church. And through that woman and spiritual transformation in my life, I said, okay, now I'm going to be somebody. Soon after that, I was turned on to the audio cassettes, Les Brown, Earl Nightingale, Brian Tracy, Dennis Waitley. And I just started pummeling my brain and my heart and my soul with all the best education and information there was on the planet. I couldn't read yet, but I could listen. And so that's where it started. And then a few years later, I found myself in a sales training where I got a job selling suits. And it was weird because I had severe social phobias and I was afraid of being in a classroom. But what happened was when people started asking questions of the teacher and they couldn't answer these questions, I thought, well, these are easy because I'd been listening to the motivational tapes, and I put up my hand and I started answering the other adults' questions. And the teacher was so impressed and the class was so impressed, they handed the class over to me and I became the teacher, which was shocking because I failed every class in school. But there I was, all of a sudden, my first time in a motivational sales training, and I'm the trainer. And so that's when I thought, wait, there's something I can do on this planet. There's some gifts and abilities I might have that have been hidden up until now. And that was the turning point where I said, that's it. I think I'm supposed to be a teacher, a speaker, a trainer of some sort.
Wow. And from there, you've gone on to create all these programs that have helped a ton of people, from verbal Aikido to
Yeah.
pure spiritual intelligence to the Dream Life Retreat to Guru Builder.
Yeah.
For the listeners on the call, can you walk them through maybe a little bit about those programs
Sure.
so that they have a better understanding of who you are and what it
Yeah.
is that you're offering to the world?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm honored. So verbal Aikido was my first big claim to fame. This is what made me, according to the buyers, the highest paid consultant of the world's most powerful banks, which is incredible. I never thought I could have a bank account at one of their banks, let alone be a hard trainer. So this is the content that also has me as an international police communications trainer, helping them with verbal Aikido to de-escalate very extreme situations, which is of course life and death. So verbal Aikido is seen as the most powerful, authentic, respectful communications philosophy on earth. And it just came together over years. I wish I could tell you, Joel, that there was a moment in time when it all came together, but it just kept evolving up until it became untouchable. What's amazing about that is one of the core tenements pieces is connectivity, to be able to have solid rapport, genuine respect, acceptance, interest in a spirit of service, to really have that bond between souls, which is ironic because I couldn't make a friend to save my life as a child. And here I am, one of the world's leading experts on rapport. It's conflict resolution, it's negotiation persuasion. So ultimate sales training. My top sales clients have generated hundreds of millions for themselves, and the banks have generated billions. And so in police forces, I often hear from law enforcement officers that because of my training, lives have been saved, that people for sure would have been killed. And so I'm honored that verbal Aikido has done that. I then started helping gurus, people who want to be an author, speaker, coach, consultant, and trainer. And I've trained up gurus around the world now who are making from nothing years ago. They're now making $5-10 million a year, some of them. So I've been able to help gurus to build an empire where they're knowledge for profit professionals or thought leaders. And it's just that I've been around the block, right? I've been doing this 30 years. So I started being able to pass on those expertise. And finally, my big crowning achievement is pure spiritual intelligence. I've been working on this since the very beginning. I wanted to talk about spiritual truths in a way that wouldn't offend people. And when I saw The Secret came out, teaching the law of attraction, all the stars of that are my peers. I know these individuals, shared the stage with many of them, most of them, I guess. And when I saw that come out, I thought, wow, spirituality is now something people are open to. And I always wanted to teach it. And so a few years later, I'm finally teaching pure spiritual intelligence. And so far, so perfect. And the Dream Life Retreat. So I couldn't be more honored, Joelle, to have what I believe are the world's most powerful products. And I'm just blessed to be able to be entrusted with them.
That's awesome. So we actually met because I was at a 3-day personal growth event, and there were thousands of people. There were all these speakers over 3 days. And, I had seen speaker after speaker. They go up for 30 minutes or an hour. They share, some value, and then they always have a program or a book or an offer. That's just the way it works. And I believe we're at least 2 days in, if not 3 days in. And I haven't purchased any programs yet. I'm ready and willing when the right thing comes. And this guy, James MacNeil, runs on stage, does his thing. And he's talking about the Guru Builder, which is becoming a guru, helping people, releasing a book, which opens up all these different income streams. And between him and the program that he was offering, it really resonated with me. So I ended up taking that program, and that's how I got to know James MacNeil. And what's amazing is over the years, we've become friends. We've worked together on a bunch of different projects, and it's pretty awesome that this all comes full circle to this podcast here. Now, you talked about personal growth.
Yes.
When it comes to Les Brown and all these people, how important is personal growth when it comes to getting closer to achieving your goals and pursuing mastery?
Sure. Well, I think one of the challenges that people have is they believe the problem they have is the problem outside of themselves. So they think the problem is the government or the environment or the economy or the price of gold or how mean their mother was or their third grade teacher or who knows what they're blaming. But they think the problem is outside of themselves. And as long as they believe the circumstances are the secret to their success, they're bound, they're trapped, they're handcuffed, they're in a prison. Because no matter how perfect the environment, you and I could screw it up. And no matter how impossible the environment, you and I can thrive. The fact is that if you study the super successes, virtually none of them should have made it. They all had challenges. They all had struggles. They all have, many of them have disabilities in one way or another. And they weren't destined for success. Almost every top athlete, top star would say, and top musician, and you know a bit about that, would say they weren't the most talented. They were just the one who didn't quit. They're just the one who didn't give up. They're just the one who found a way. And so talent is just one piece of an equation, but it's a large equation. And so talent might help you, but talent will not overcome the lack of personal development, the lack of emotional intelligence, and the lack of spiritual intelligence. If you're lacking the fundamentals, you can find a way to blow even the most perfect scenario and situation. And if you have those in place, you can overcome virtually any challenge. So personal development is it. The successes, as I've hung out backstage in the green rooms with people like Tony Robbins, like Les Brown, like Bob Proctor, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, Steve Forbes, Rudy Giuliani, Larry King. When I've shared the stage, and Sir Richard Branson was my favorite, when I shared the stage and backstage with them, I found that their spiritual intelligence was the one unifying success secret. Everything else was, a little of this, a little of that. But when it came to the inner game or the spiritual game, this is where it's won or lost 100% of the time, in my opinion.
See, the problem with not focusing on personal growth is wherever you go, there you are. You don't want to be the weakest link when it comes to finding success. So with personal growth, are there any specific books maybe that you recommend? Everyone says Think and Grow Rich. Anything that's really helped you that might help our listeners?
Well, my favorite book, because let's keep in mind that most of the people that began my journey, I wasn't reading their books, I was listening to their audios. And
Mm.
so their audios, whether it's a live training or just an audio program, they may or may not have been connected to books. But by the time I started reading, one of the first books, and it's still one of the most fundamental for me, is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the all-time greats. I think of James Allen's Think As a Man Thinketh, Little We Think. And I think of Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics. Now, the best book of all is the one that I haven't quite published yet, and that's Pure Spiritual Intelligence. But the moment it's published, that is the #1 book. The other one I have to suggest, because it's the honest truth of something that's been central for me, is the Bible. The Bible has been the most central book for me. And many of the success secret philosophers will reach into the wisdom literature, whether that be of Judaism or Christianity or Buddhism, all the other faith groups. And so the wisdom literature is really solid. And we look for the latest shiny ball. But sometimes the time-tested secrets of success are the ones to go for. And so I look at some of the wisdom literature, and then I'd go 7 Habits, and then Pure Spiritual Intelligence above all.
Ah, love it. I love it. I have the advanced copy that
Yeah.
has a few of the chapters, so that whets the appetite, and now I'm ready for the full thing to digest everything. So we talked about personal growth. We talked
Yeah.
about books and audio books. When it comes to mentors, how
Mm,
important are mentors in collapsing time frames? Look,
yeah.
people have already gone through your challenges, and if they say that you can learn a lot from mistakes, but nobody says it has to be your mistakes.
Yeah.
So if you can find the right mentor and lock arms, you follow in their footsteps, you're able to achieve what they've achieved. So how important are mentors, and did you have any mentors that were
Mm.
able to help you to guide you along the way?
Well, first, I want to say that no matter what I say about my story, mentors are central to success, no matter what. They really are. Every time I'm on stage or backstage with one of these superstars, they talk about their mentors. So this is one of the most central secrets to success, that virtually every successful person has had a mentor who poured into them, and they listened to that mentor. And so mentorship is central to success, period. That's just a fact. When I was backstage, I think it was in South Africa, Johannesburg, South Africa. I think today's the anniversary of that speech. I was sitting backstage with Richard Tan, who is the billionaire who runs Success Resources, which is he's like the godfather of this industry backstage, and he lives in Singapore. And he and I were backstage, and I was talking to him about success, and we interviewed. I captured the interview, and he just turned to my audience and he said, "Listen, would you please listen to James?" And I thought, "Isn't this kind?" And he said, "You can take 5, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and you might figure out what he's going to teach you in one sitting. Just listen to the man." And I thought, wow, what an honor. So he and everyone else I know says mentorship. Now, let me backtrack to my story. I didn't. I haven't had the mentors in the traditional sense. I have had mentors. I'm not saying I did not. But every mentorship experience that I had was based on the fact that I found an angle to almost trick them or force them into helping me. I didn't find mentors who said, "Boy, I just love that kid. I want to take him under my wing." I did not have that experience. I have had mentors who helped me, but only when I was making them money. So what I found was, first of all, I would buy the books and buy the audio programs from the great gurus, and they became mentors without knowing me. When I met Les Brown, finally for the first time, I told him, "You've been my dad, for years." And so he calls me Guru Son, and we've been close ever since. But he didn't mentor me. His audio cassettes, some of your listeners probably don't even know what an audio cassette is, but old people stuff. But his audio programs raised me. And so I was raised by mentors who didn't know me. And then when I got into the business world, when I got into the speaking business, I found mentors. But the way I got them to help me is I became salesman for them. If I was a salesperson for them, my success was their success. And so they would invest in me only for selfish gain. Now, I'm not trying to insult them. Some of you know who my mentors are, and they're wonderful and they're great. I'm merely saying it wasn't some philanthropic, they found me and they loved me and they nurtured me and they cared for me and wiped my nose. No. But I found that I could find a mentor. If you can help rich and powerful people become richer and more powerful, they'll invest time with you. And that was my secret to find the mentorships that I needed.
That sounds like a winning equation for sure. And at what point did you know that you could be successful as a speaker or on stage? Was there a moment? Sometimes comedians just do it, and eventually they get better. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just have a moment where you've had a tough time on stage, and then suddenly you have that one standing ovation. You go, wait a minute, I can do this. Did you have a moment that stood out, or was it a period of time?
Uh, a combination. It's continued to evolve for me, right? I would continue to see different versions or different capacities, different opportunities. But the first one, let's start with this. I wasn't confident. I was desperate. Let's be honest. When I started in this industry, it wasn't because I knew and people believed in me. No, no, no. It was the only thing I could see that would get me out of, it's like, when am I going to stop selling in retail or being a janitor? So when I thought I could do this, I'm like, I'm all in. But it wasn't faith based on evidence. It was action based on desperation. And so it didn't start with faith. But I remember I was working with Raymond Aaron. You know who Raymond Aaron is. And he was
Yep.
doing real estate investment seminars at the time. And it took a long time to talk him into taking me under his wing, but he sent me to Kamloops, BC. I think he sent me as far away from Toronto as possible. So if I blew it, it wouldn't embarrass him. And he sent me to Kamloops, and I was supposed to give a presentation and sell tickets to his seminar. Well, Joel, 7 people showed up in the basement of the Best Western. 7. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? So I thought, well, I'm not giving up. I'm going for it. So I did my full pitch. And the pitch, it's embarrassing to talk about now, but I was like standing up and jumping around. I was doing his speech, right? I didn't adapt to 7 people because I didn't know how to adapt to anything. I just did it exactly as if there were 500 people in front of me, and 7 people looking up at me like I'm a madman. But 3 of them bought, 3 out of the 7.
It's a pretty good ratio.
I'm saying. So I get on the phone with Raymond. He's in Kelowna. I'm in Kamloops. And I call him and I said, there was only 7 people. And he wasn't mad. He said, that happens. He says, how'd you do? I said, 3. He says, oh my gosh, you did better than me. I said, what do you mean? He said, you got like 40%. He said, it's one of the highest closing ratios in the industry. He says, kid, you got yourself a career. I was like, oh, okay. I had no idea. So the evidence was not applause. The evidence was in monetary. My job was selling. If people applauded for me, I went broke. I don't want applause. I want credit cards. And that was my job. And so if I got the sales, now we know I've got something. And so I did that. And then the next week, he sent me to Vancouver area. And I made, in commissions, this is 30 years ago, I made $5,000 in 1 week. Well, I didn't know any king who made that kind of money, and I knew I had something. So that was one of the breakthroughs. Another shocking one was when I was asked by the banks to do telemark like these, but without the video, like online webinars, online something, teleclasses. And I told them I can't do it because I only at that time knew how to work with a live audience. So I openly admitted to the class. They forced me by writing a big check. And so I did it, but I openly said to the class, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. Other people have been taught how to do this. I'm just going to do my best. And at the end of the class, they in unity said I was the best online trainer they'd ever seen. And so for me, it was the social mirror. It was the evidence of the sales, the evidence of the feedback, the evidence of the corporate checks. And if it wasn't for the world giving me that feedback, I wouldn't have known. And that's why I tell people, you got to play, you got to go for it. You'll never have the validation that you want without getting out there and going for it. I've made more mistakes than anyone I know. I've just had a lot of fun.
Yeah, the people that have the most success usually have had the most failures as well, and because that allows them to learn from that and recalibrate and do a better job moving forward. So you don't want to be afraid of failure. You want to step into failure, but use it as a resource. Now, over your illustrious career, what have you done to have fun, to make sure that you don't forget that this is an adventure? It's not all about money or achievements or accomplishments. How do you keep this fun after all this time and in high pressure environments?
That's a great question. I'm not sure that I've done a great job of that, Joel. I seriously, I'm going to be 55 in in June. Feel free to send cards and letters and money. And when I turn 55, I think I'm going to start really taking this life seriously. Like, I don't think I've made it. I don't think I've done it. I think the best of me is far ahead. I even my best physical body is ahead of me, but not behind me. I believe I will be more fit. I will be more sharp. I'll be more creative. I'll be more powerful. I'm just getting warmed up. And so I've been a bit of a workaholic, some would say, and taking on a million things. And so I can't say I've really learned how to have balance. I think I'm not saying I haven't enjoyed myself. I'm a bit of a nut job. I have tons of fun. I laugh all the time. I goof off, sing karaoke. Even with my clients, we just goof off a lot. But to me, that's essential. But I'm not positive, Joelle, that I figured out this whole balance thing, and it just is what it is. But someday I'm going to grow up, and someday I'm going to hit some plateaus that are going to give me the feeling that I can take my foot off the gas pedal. But up until now, honestly, I've been leaning in pretty hard, and I'm not begrudging that. I love to work hard. I love to create. I love the challenge. High pressure doesn't seem to be as much of a challenge for me. I thrive on. I just believe if you threw me in a room, get this, Joelle, if you threw me in a room with like 5,000 people and they've just literally physically killed the last 5 speakers, that would be the most exciting day of my life. I'd be like, let me at them, watch what's going to happen. I just have this confidence when I get to do what I do. And so that part isn't a challenge for me. That's fun. So I love the challenge. I love the game. I love to play. If karaoke is life balance, then I've got it figured out.
That's amazing. Now, a little confession is I run a lot of big events. Not so much today because there are no events. We're all doing self-isolation. But I used to run the biggest karaoke competition in Toronto, and I had done this Guru Builder event with James MacNeil, and out of nowhere, I have this karaoke competition, and James MacNeil enters, and I think, oh my God, this is amazing. And I had no idea, but he went on. He kept moving on to other rounds in the competition. I remember, is it Love Shack? I have Love Shack. Yeah. So so I knew that somewhere in there for the fun that karaoke was going to come out, which is awesome.
All over the world, man. Every city, every country. My staff would know one of the first things we do when we land is find the karaoke bar. It's very important.
And a few points about your response when it comes to fun. When I talk to really successful people, most of them say that, look, Joelle, the life balance, that is a myth. When you are on the road to massive success, you actually have to put that life balance aside for a while to achieve that massive success. And then that massive success is what gives you financial freedom and time freedom to create a more balanced life. But you'll never get there by having everything balanced and perfect. So that's a good point of what you were saying. And the other thing is, if you love what you do, you're already having fun. And when successful people work crazy hours and people say, wow, you're obsessed, all you do is work. The thing is, they're doing what they love. So they don't see it as work. They see it as doing their hobby and their passion and their career, everything at the same time, their purpose and their mission and all those things. So that it just triggered that in your response. Do you have?
Can I jump back in, Joelle? Sorry,
Yeah,
just
go
on
ahead.
that. I just thought of something that just so that people know within my world, just to be more open on my answer to that, there are different jobs, right? There's the research job, there's the networking job, there's the writing job, there's the selling job, there's the fulfillment job, there's the business management. There's lots of different parts of the equation. And so in a more full answer, one of the things I do for balance is I change the roles, right? So sometimes I'm on the road and there's nothing but go, 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 stage. Sometimes I do a ton of media, and sometimes I do a lot of creation. For the last, month, I've been like locked away here, just hiding and writing and working on research. I love to research. It's one of my passions. I'm more fascinated with the science of success than I am anything else. So I love the stage. I love each piece, and I'll alternate for what I call my own version of life balance. So I just want to complete my answer, Joel, as you were speaking.
That's all good. Now, you talked a little bit about being stuck at home for the last month. So, how has your business changed since self isolation? We can't go out, we can't do
Mhm.
events. Maybe that's allowed you to focus on other parts of your business or preparing
Mhm.
for when things open back up. So, how has self isolation changed your business? How have you adapted to that? And some people are going through crazy challenges right now with their health, with their
Mhm.
finances, with the lack of connection, not being able to get
Yeah.
out there with other people. And if you have a message for any of them that might help them during this difficult period of time.
Yeah. Well, I would say whether it's this period of time or any other period of time, our number one job is our own wellness. If I'm not well, I can't serve greatly. If I'm not taking care of me, I can't take care of you. And so wellness is job number one for all of us, I believe. Because if I become a victim of my own overwork, or if I become a victim of whatever, not managing my health, then I can't make a positive difference. So it's my responsibility to be well. And so in this season, when everything's shut down, I thought of it as a beautiful opportunity for me to take care of me. When I came into this just before the coronavirus hit, I had hit an absolute breakdown as far as exhaustion. I just hit a wall, which I've done in the past, but it was serious. I had real, adrenal fatigue. And so I thought, how perfect timing. I sprinted right into the dead stop. And I just thought, isn't this beautiful? The universe timed it so that I could rest right now. And so I did a lot of resting, tons of meditating and prayer, tons of just breathing, staring at trees and without a plan. Sometimes we don't have to be productive. And so I really enjoyed that. Then I went into, okay, so who am I? Why am I here? What do I love? How am I living? Am I living who I really am, or am I living someone else's dream? Am I just keeping up with the Joneses? Am I just competing for no reason? Am I really making a difference? Let me ask the bigger question. So I took this opportunity. Most of my peers just shifted from stage to online, and they've been very busy. And there's summits going on every day. Everyone's doing this stuff, and I just think at a time of peace, I personally thought it's an opportunity to breathe. And so that's what I've been doing. Now, I believe that if you and I take advantage of wellness, recentering our spiritual lives, our physical health, we are getting ready for the opportunity. And then once we're connected, once we're clicked in, you can blow past everyone who's been working the whole time. The what is it, the tortoise and the hare story, right?
Hmm.
If you're what is it? No, that's a wrong illustration, because I'm talking about the rabbit resting or something. So forget the rabbit, forget the turtle. Bad storytelling. But the point is though, I'll go with in the Marvel thing, Thanos clicked his fingers and destroyed half of all life in the universe. But what it is get ready for that snapping of your fingers. If you can take this time to get ready, get positioned, get prepared, get well, get healthy, get focused, then coming out of this, you may be hitting the ground running in a way that the rest of the world just isn't. So sometimes it's a good time for a pit stop. It's not wrong to make another choice, but that's the way I've gone. And I'm feeling like $1,000,000. I feel like I'm ready to go, and I'm launching a big, huge product within the next couple of weeks. And I think it'll be a world changer. And it just came from stillness, came from calm, it came from peace.
Mm. Yeah, we had met up shortly before the
Yeah.
coronavirus, and I was in Mexico for 3 weeks leading up to this happening. So I had spent the 3 weeks like you. I
Yeah.
was jogging, yoga, reading, writing, meditation, and I was really focusing on. Um, I wanted to relax, refocus, re-energize, and come back ready to take on that next phase of my life. So I actually came home, and it's like I was in the right state for what we're about to go through.
Mm.
And this has just
Yeah.
been like an extension of what I was doing. Now, I know that some people, this is a very difficult time,
Yes.
so I'm not making light of that. But for me, part of me wants this to continue, where I don't have to be out every night doing events. And there's been so much reading and starting new projects. So I've enjoyed this. and hopefully things do go back to normal in the near future. We're
Mhm.
still not sure what the next steps are, but we'll take everything as it comes. Do you have a daily mode of operation? Some people just wake up and they wing it. Some people spend the first few hours getting organized or meditation or going for a walk. What does your day look like,
Sure.
or your mornings, or is there
Yeah.
something you have to do every day as a routine?
Well, I would say not. There's nothing that I have to do. I'd like to think of it as there are opportunities for sharpening the saw, for getting myself ready. But I've also lived in reaction. Many of my years were in reaction, desperate. Wake up and hit the road. Sometimes get a couple hours sleep, get on another plane, and I'd forget what country I'm in, for crying out loud. So I've had seasons where I was just nose to the grindstone, and there was no wellness rituals. There was nothing, just survival instinct, which was fine, and it worked and I enjoyed it. But when I can, and the more I'm creating protections around myself, I start with nothing. What I mean by that is I start with just my cup of coffee, which not everyone thinks is healthy, but I'm convinced. So I start with my coffee and nothingness. I start with nothingness, and then I move into prayer, and I have some prayer rituals, some prayer processes that I go through. I then go into meditation, guided imagery, visioning. I do what's called what's called a quantum breath, and I teach in Pure Spiritual Intelligence, quantum breathing. It's a micro meditation. I then go into a longer meditation called quantum visioning, where I'm able to go into the future and meet with a future version of myself, which sounds a little spacey for some, but to be able to envision my best possible future and have the future me thank me for working hard and doing what it takes. And so I find these things incredibly valuable. I then look at my dream life manifesto and I walk through what is my perfect life, and not with, this is an important thing, Joel. Many people, they write goals and they write visions, and then they feel the stress of not being there. Instead, what I do is I move into envisioning my perfect future with gratitude, thanking as if it already is, not hoping or fearing, but rather being thankful for it already is. And I go through that systematically. I then go through, well, it depends, but I often go through a forgiveness ritual where I make sure that I've cleaned the slate. If I've got any beef with anybody, I take care of that in my heart and in my soul. And if I have beef with myself, I forgive. So to be clean slate and reconnected to source energy, source love, God, if you will, these are the fundamentals for me. And to know who I am, why I'm here, and what I want. If I have that straightened away, I'm ready for the day.
They say the person that conquers their morning conquers their life. That it's
Mm.
an extension. You're just compounding that state over and over again, or that morning over and over again. So if you can get up, get on track. Like you said, you don't want to be chasing the day. You want
Right.
to be prepared in advance for it. Now, as you have success, as your business grows, you start to identify your strengths, and you have to
Mhm.
start sometimes hiring your weaknesses. You need to assemble a team. And
Yeah.
when it comes to building a team, when it comes to building a team, you have to take on new responsibilities. There starts to be an element of leadership, and
Yes.
leadership is its own thing. Do you have any advice for people that are just coming into a leadership role for the first
Ooh.
time? Um, because you can achieve a lot on your own, just setting goals, breaking them down, working hard, achieving them. But when it comes to leadership and other people, you have to be empathetic and compassionate and patient and all these things that a lot of people don't have naturally. So any advice
Yeah.
on leadership, or building a team, or surrounding yourself with the right people?
Sure. So thank you, Joel. I think it's very important because it's a different set of skills and disciplines depending on your own experience. But let me start with this. I believe 100% of all human beings that have taken a breath are called to leadership. I believe we're all called to leadership. Some people believe it's some are and some aren't. I believe we're all called to leadership, starting with self-leadership. If you have not mastered self, then you're going to have some challenges in leadership. So starting with self, to be a leader, have a vision, of what you intend and then act on that vision. That makes a leader a leader. Leaders are people who act on vision, and others are attracted to that vision. They're attracted to that person. The next thing I would say on it is, so one, self-leadership, take action on vision. Number two, I would say become attractive. You want to be a magnet. You want to be magnetic to money. You want to be magnetic to talent. You want to be magnetic to opportunity. You want to be the one that all of these resources fly at 24/7. Opportunities just come their way. And what does it take to be magnetic? Well, it starts by being true to yourself. So who you really are is magnetic. I've done a lot of research on charisma and rapport. And Bill Clinton is just one of the poster boys of perfect rapport. They say you can't be alone with Bill Clinton for 1 minute without falling in love with him, no matter what. No matter what. You could say, I'm against his politics, he's a womanizer, I can't stand it. It doesn't matter. Get alone with him for a minute, he owns you. That's what I've been told. And I have evidence of someone who I highly respect, who couldn't stand him until he met him. Now he's a raving fan for life. He just said, you can't resist the guy. And when I've studied it, and I've talked to people around the world about Bill Clinton, just as a case study, and I talked to Richard Tan, the owner of Success Resources, and I said, what's your story? He says, well, I sat beside Bill Clinton once at an event. And one of the things I learned about Bill Clinton is when he talks to you, you're the only person on earth. He just totally is present. And so if you want to have power of charisma, you want to have a powerful presence. The secret to that, and here's the answer, you want to be powerfully present. You want to be present. If you're in the past and the future or distracted by your environment, you're not present. And people can feel when you're not dialed in. And so to be attractive, you have to be present. The second thing I would say about being attractive is you want to have a pronounced personhood, which means really you, be really you and really present. And so if you try and be Joel Martin or James MacNeil or Les Brown, if you try and be somebody else, you'll always be less powerful than if you were you. When we become our true authentic self and we show up in presence, then we become very attractive. And so when you're attractive, you will attract the talent. You'll attract. Now, whether it's a paid gig or a volunteer gig, I suggest if you're a leader, treat everyone like they're a volunteer. Be grateful. Invest in them. They say, the only thing worse than investing in someone's growth and having them leave is to not invest in their growth and have them stay. Mm. So you'll want to invest yourself, your best ideas, your best resources in the people who work with you. If they're not improving by being near you, then you're not leading. And then the last thing I'd say on that is the gentleman who he was the CEO of Jaguar when Jaguar went under and had to be purchased by somebody else. And he said, hearts and minds are always volunteered. You can hire hands, you can hire feet, but hearts and minds are always volunteered. So if you treat people like a volunteer and give them something to be excited about, then they're going to be happy. And then, the second last, now the last thing would be if they don't have clear roles and responsibilities with clear results, then even if they're doing everything right, they don't feel successful because they didn't know what success looked like. If people can know what success looks like, then they can celebrate. And if they don't know it, and if you don't know it, it's hard for anyone to know if it's working or not. So these are some tips on leadership off the top of my head.
So you're saying to make sure you have clearly set goals for them, clearly set roles for them, and that'll help them to have success.
Yes. What are the conditions? What does success look like? How do we know if we've succeeded? We have to have a clear vision of what is success. And then the last thing is make it fun. Oh my gosh, have fun. Make prizes and ribbons and make it fun. When we make it fun for ourselves and others, then people want to stick around.
And what do you do to get back on track when you find yourself in a less than peak state? Sometimes they say the devil's three best friends are doubt, fear, and worry. And sometimes they creep up on you. What do you do when you realize that you're in that state and you want to get out of it as quickly as possible? Any tips or tricks to not stay down for an extended period of time?
Well, first thing is to stop fighting what is. So whatever state I find myself in, I want to believe that it's perfect. As horrible as I might feel, as lousy as it might appear, as hopeless as the circumstances may be, I want to say this is perfect. Everything is perfect and everything is improving, which means this is part of my success story. This is part of my dream life. A roller coaster has ups and downs and lefts and rights. For me to think it's always supposed to be straight and narrow, that's boring and it's not real life. So first step is to accept what is as being perfect. I'm supposed to feel this way. Oh, look at me, I'm insecure. Look at me, I'm negative. Oh, look at me, I'm a whiner. And just say, that's what is right now. So good. Now I see it. Now what? And so it's not about trying to fight what is, it's to face what is and say, and now, okay, thank you, bad habit. Thank you, bad attitude. Thank you, circumstance. You've come into my journey for a reason. And now what? It's not what I should have done. It's what I should do now. It's the only right question. And so I don't begrudge whatever is. That's step number one. Second, what I do is I run back to source energy, source love, God, if you will. And I say, okay, talk to me, guide me, forgive me, help me out here. And if I'm reconnected to the power source, then the power can flow back through me again. And I can find the love, the joy, the peace, the purpose, the prosperity. I can reconnect with everything that made me successful when I had a better day. And so I don't begrudge whatever is, and I run back to source for my refueling. And I try and move forward in love, not in fear or frustration, to get back into a service spirit of saying, I'm not here for me. I'm not needy. My goal is not to make it. I'm on this planet to make it better, to make the planet better. How is this world going to be better off because I showed up? These are the things that turn me on. So if I can get myself back to first accept what is, reconnect to source, reconnect to purpose, then I can find myself back on track real fast.
That's really good advice. I'm taking notes so that I can put this stuff into action. Do you have a professional memory from your entire career? Is there a memory that stands out as being your favorite? Is there a
Yeah,
top? Okay, let's hear it. You
absolutely.
already know it. Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. So it was today, ish, 4 years ago, I believe. I was on stage with Les Brown in Johannesburg, South Africa, and I was speaking with him before. Now, this is probably the seventh country we've shared the stage, and he would acknowledge me. We would be in the States, we'd be overseas, and he'd say, "Hey, James," and I'd say, "Hey, Les," and I was moved, right, because it was his audio that really saved me. So I saw him as a father figure more than any other living soul. And so when I was talking to him that day. Oh, I know what happened. Sorry. Then someone on his team was talking to me. He was a couple feet away. And I told them, I said, do you realize who Les is to me? He raised me through his audios. He's like my dad. And the person said, he'll want to understand this. Does he know this? I said, I don't think so. So he cleared the area, said, Les, you've got to talk to James. So I told Les, and he said, we've got to film that. We made a video in that moment talking about our story, about how I was his guru son. Moments later, after that video was recorded, he's battled cancer. And his handlers, his team, his health professionals were escorting him out of the building. He says, no, I'm not leaving until I hear James MacNeil speak. We had shared the stage 7 countries, 7 cities, 7 whatever, but he never heard me speak. He just met me backstage. But now that he knew who I was to him or who he was to me, he refused to leave. And they said, well, you have to go back to your hotel. Long story short, they made a deal that he would nap and come back. So he came back from my speech. I'm on stage in front of 5,000 people in Johannesburg, South Africa. Big deal. And Les Brown is sitting at a table to my right. And I'm distracted by him, trying to focus on my speech, but it's Les Brown, watching me. So I do my gig. And when I came home down off the stage, Joel, I can't believe this happened. When I was done my speech and I came off of that stage and half of the room ran over to buy what I was selling and the place was bedlam. As I walked down, Les Brown stood up. He walked around the table he was sitting at to come out into the open floor in front of everybody. And he did this. He bowed twice and he said, young man, the student has become the master. I have a few things to learn from you now. And that my life is complete, to earn the respect of someone I respect, the world's #1 motivational speaker. And he's since hired me to help him do speaker training down in Florida where he lives. That was the greatest moment when Les Brown gave me that. That was the greatest gift ever.
That's quite a moment, and it's amazing that you're able to capture some of that on video, which is pretty amazing. What is the biggest mistake you've made in your career, and what did you learn from it so that we can avoid making the same mistake? And well, whatever you're allowed to divulge here. And
Mm-hmm.
what is the smartest thing that you've done so that we can maybe duplicate that as well?
Okay. So many people who are successful at some things are not successful at everything. Everything. The chef who thinks they should open up the restaurant finds out they don't know how to run a restaurant and they are having no fun. They prefer to just be the chef. So sometimes when we grow forward into our successes, we find parts of our new life of success that aren't our strengths. For me, running a business was not my strength. I'm still learning in a big way. So what I did was, for fear, I hired someone to run my business. And I didn't do a background check. I didn't do all my research. I didn't talk to other people who had worked with this individual. I was traveling the world full time. They were running my business back home. I was barely ever home, making money from every angle. We were just flying at that time. And then things started, it's like, wait, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? I'm asking for updates. I'm not getting updates. Long story short, they weren't doing what I thought they were doing. Not only were they not doing their job, my money kind of went missing. And I thought, I can't believe they would do this to me. I trusted them. And so what I did was I handed blind trust to someone who didn't deserve it. And then I didn't keep my eye on the ball. And I allowed my business to be manhandled or abused or whatever by somebody else. Biggest mistake of my life. So I would say to you, if you're going to be delegating, whether it's leadership or your accounting, if you're delegating, do not lose the position of stewardship. It's your responsibility, your business, your money, your empire, your clientele. So no matter how big you get, do not abdicate responsibility. You can delegate, but not abdicate. And that was the biggest mistake I made. And it put me in a horrible position. To some degree, I'm still paying for. So that was my biggest mistake, trusting someone I shouldn't have trusted and looking the other way. The best thing I ever did was forgave them. The best thing I ever did was get over it, because that was the end of me. I was hooked into a victim mentality. And victim mentality is possibly the most damaging thing. If you think about the world's scariest people, the monsters of history, the monsters of today, 100% of the world's most abusive, hurtful, evil people, 100% of them see themselves as a victim. Victimhood is the beginning of evil. And so what I needed to do was focus on my responsibility. I'm the one who hired him. I'm the one who didn't do the background check. I'm the one who looked the other way. This is about me. He was just being himself. I'm responsible for this story. And only then could I learn the lessons and be free and move forward. And forgiveness is one of the master skills of life. If you are not in a regular habit of forgiving yourself and forgiving others and see yourself not as a victim anymore, if you're not cleaning that slate on a regular basis, you're being sucked into a dark place. So I would say quickly let things go. It's one of the best things I've done is to forgive, and forgive.
I guess as you start to identify yourself as a victim, that's where you start being able to justify
Oh
some
yeah.
of your actions that aren't positive actions. What are the top traits that you can identify in yourself that have allowed you to achieve your level of success? There's a lot of speakers and
Yeah.
advisors and authors, but not all of them have achieved your success. So what traits can you identify in yourself that have allowed you to come this far?
Well, okay. So I take action, massive action. I go for it. Freaking go for it.
Mm.
Absolutely go for it. I'm fearless. Throw me in a room full of gorillas with Uzis. I'm going to give it my best shot. I don't back off. I don't back down. I don't run away. When I see something that's worth having, when something worth doing, something worth learning, something worth accomplishing, I'm not a very fear-based person. I go for it. So taking massive action based on the best information I have within the time allotted is one of the things I've done right. Number two, I really honor, this is a tricky thing for me to say. How I built my empire was really caring for the customer, and the customer always got what they expected or better. Since I had that business situation with the gentleman who I had hired, I'm still scrambling to get my customer service up to where it should be. I've really got set back by that. So for me, it's very important. I don't know if anything's coming up on my screen on your end, but things are popping up on my screen here. I just have to close. I don't know why that is. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So, oops, I hit an install button. I don't know what I'm about to install, but let me cancel that. All right. So I was just clicking close. Where was I, Joel? I apologize, brother.
So about the top traits. So you take massive action and
Massive action.
customer service that
Yeah.
you give more than expected.
Yeah, no surprise, but good surprise was my motto. And so I'd always over deliver. The corporations knew I would always be on time. I would be dressed. I'd be prepared, and I'd hit it out of the water. Out of the park. I would always hit or exceed expectations. And so that to me is very important. I never took it for granted. And so that's something that's very important to me. And then what else? So massive action, take care of the customer, and adaptability. This isn't working, so change. You say, but it always used to work. So it always used to work. Celebrate the past. You're perfectly prepared for a world that no longer exists. Let it go. The fact that it used to work is irrelevant. What's working now? Are you adapting? Are you adjusting? Are you flexible with content and methodology? And can you move? Can you shift? Can you adapt? And Darwin would tell us the number one secret to survival of a species is adaptability. And so that's the same for anyone who wants to be successful. Can you adapt? So massive action, take care of the customer, clean slate, the forgiveness thing I talked about earlier, and then adaptability. These are some things that are just, in fact, I just want to drill down on one. Is that okay, Joel? I just want to talk about the massive action. One time I was training a massive bank. I can't say their name, but you would know them. One of the world's most powerful financial institutions. And I was training the investment advisors on a holistic communications philosophy, being honoring and customer service and so on. And some of the honest recruits, they were just honest. They're saying, okay, this sounds nice. You teach nice stuff, how to be nice, how to take care of the customer, how to listen to everybody. And they said, but the most successful people in our office aren't like that. They're pit bulls, they're animals, they're wolves, they're killers. They're not nice like you're teaching us. I said, well, you've got a point here. Let's take a peek at that. So I was really nervous what I was going to find out. But after our research, here's what we found. The people they saw as being these ravenous killing machines were above where they were, but they weren't the top. The top people were silent and quiet. Sometimes people who appear to be the most successful are just somewhat successful, but really loud. And so just because they saw a lot of noise and a lot of bragging, a lot of chest pounding and fancy cars, they thought those were the most successful people. But we found the very most successful were smooth as silk, calm, as cool as a cucumber. They're kind, they're servant spirit. They were manifesting everything that I was teaching. The most successful were living what I was teaching, but there was this other group. So I'm trying to understand why there were so many people, quote unquote, successful who were not behaving in what we would call the most highest ethos. And so here's what I realized. There's people who are driven by greed. There are people who are driven by survival, and there are people who are driven by love. Those who are driven by greed take more action than most anybody. They work harder. If a person who's selfish, self-centered, shallow and short-sighted dials the phone more often, they're going to make money. Don't credit their bad attitude, credit their action. That was one of the ahas. The second thing is people who are in for survival just made enough and that was it. And they didn't really go for it. Those who were driven by love outperformed with character, outperformed with love and honor and respect. And those who were driven by love outperformed everybody, but did so quietly that they were unobservable. What they were looking at is what they called the nice people being down here at the bottom and the greedy ones being at the top. What they're missing is the people who are really at the top, who are driven by love. And so survival alone doesn't drive you to outrageous success. Survival is fine, it's good, it's right, but it doesn't change the world. If you're living for more than just yourself, with love as your energy source, you're unstoppable. That would be the greatest success secret, if you ask me. Be driven by love.
Mm. And we have 8 months left in 2020. What is your vision for the rest of the year? And have you set any goals? Is there any big, hairy, audacious goals that you've set for yourself that gets you out of bed in the morning, gets you excited and ready to go?
Uh, yeah, but it's top secret.
Oh no.
I'm launching something so huge that I believe it'll be globally explosive. It's just going to be a world changer, and I'm working with top minds, top like very powerful people to just make sure that we protect the idea, that we protect everything. And I'm not normally like this, Joelle. You know me, I'd tell you everything, but I'm working on something that's too top secret right now. But but yeah, it's got me very excited. I can't. I'm. It's like I can't remember being this excited. It's like I'm a kid all over again. And some people who know me say I'm always like a kid, but now even more so. So I can't wait for the world. It's like show and tell, Joelle. I can't wait for show and tell. I got something to show and something to tell. So we're about to launch some huge things. I will say this, that it's based on the pure spiritual intelligence content and the dream life content. I believe in my lifetime, 1 million people will do the Dream Life Retreat, which is a heavy toe because they're in small groups. I believe hundreds of millions will be touched with this message. And we have a model right now that I believe is about to launch it. So I believe this will be bigger than virtually anything that we've seen. Um, I was wrong about 3 things in the last decade, so I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty stoked, pretty excited. I can barely sleep with it. And so I'm just trusting that everything's working together as perfect in its perfect timing. And yeah, I expect explosive growth this year, explosive, like nothing I've ever seen. Everything I've done up until now will be considered the before he started story.
That's amazing. I'm glad you're excited. You got big plans and you're going to give us a world premiere in the next few weeks. So, I have one final
Yeah.
question for you. Let's say you wake up tomorrow and it turns out that you're a brand new inspirational speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And from scratch, you're allowed to use all the experience, the training, the knowledge, everything you've gained over the years. You have that, but you're starting your career from scratch. What do you do to get back to your current level of success as quickly as possible? And this is great advice for people that are tuning into the podcast that are about to start something from scratch. And that'll give them kind of an idea of again, maybe how to collapse
Mm-hmm.
time frames by listening to some advice from someone like yourself.
Thank you. The first thing I would do is I would catch as big a vision as I can to turn myself on. I would create a big vision, and I would be more than willing to change it every day for the rest of my life. But without a vision, the people perish. When it comes to things like writing, for an example, it's easy to edit a lousy page. It's impossible to edit a blank page. So I'm going to start with a plan, and then maybe I'll throw it away. But that plan will move me into action. So I want a massive, exciting plan. Step number one, something big, something that turns me on. Then, after I've got the big, long-term, big, hairy, audacious goal, this exciting vision of someday I'm then going to say, where's the money now? And I'm going to immediately move into where's the money now? What are people buying now? What can I sell now? What can I offer? What can I do? What do I have? I would do a quick assessment of what can I bring to the market that the market is currently interested in, and let me sell the crap out of it to get myself into motion. I need to be in action. I need to be getting results. Only in motion can the ship be steered. So I'm not going to have it all figured out by sitting in an ivory tower dreaming. I want a vision, and then I want to get into action. Massive action with what I believe you can sell. When Sony started, they didn't start building stereos and Trinitrons or whatever they built. They started with like heating blankets. They're just putting wires through blankets. they a pea soup cooker or something like that. They were like, how do we make money now until we can be who we know we're supposed to be? So I would have a big vision, and then the fastest path to cash, and I would work my butt off. I would let the marketplace tell me what I should be doing. I'm not going to figure that out sitting in my home alone. I'd get out there, sell something, and by the yeses and nos, find my way to that vision. That's what I would do.
That's great advice. That's a great place to end the call. And as we wrap up, where can our listeners find you online? Is there a website, maybe a handle for Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, any of those? Where should people connect with you online?
I really should have a marketing person sitting beside me at moments like this. So you can go to jamesmacneil.com, James MacNeil. So James is spelled as you would expect. MacNeil is MacNeil, jamesmacneil.com. You can find me on Facebook. We have a free Facebook group that everyone can join. It's called Pure Spiritual Intelligence. It's kind of simple. Pure Spiritual Intelligence Facebook group. And through that, you can find virtually everything. And so through Pure Spiritual Intelligence, you can connect with me and jamesmacneil.com. These are two ways that you can find me. And I would be honored, frankly honored, if I could meet anyone who's watching this. Maybe what I'll do is I'll send you a free downloadable copy of the book. Right now, I've only got the first 5 chapters, but I'll send you that. But some way of rewarding you for watching Joel. But definitely jamesmacneil.com, and then Facebook private, and not private, it's a public, it's a free group, Pure Spiritual Intelligence.
Amazing. So James, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing, all this amazing advice with our listeners. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the support, and we'll connect soon.
I love it. Thank you so much, Joel. And thank you for watching, those of you who are out there, but thank you, Joel. I really appreciate this.
You're very welcome. Take care, everyone. Bye.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I'd love to hear from you guys. My goal is to grow this podcast organically, where you're giving me feedback on topics you'd like me to cover and guests you'd like me to interview. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel, and on Twitter at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.